Let's now settle for the details for this afternoon on Marketplace. An energy think tank, ACEP, is questioning government's claim of using proceeds from the Stabilization Levy to cushion prices of petroleum products or hold them. Now, government earlier this month announced that they will actually be holding prices of petroleum products at the pumps to ensure that consumers will not be paying more. Government would actually be taking about 7 pesos of that out of the 10 pesos that is levied on petroleum products. Now, according to the Energy Ministry, this action should cost the state some 300 million Ghana cedis and should end by February next year. But the Director of Operations at ACEP, Ben Boati, tells Joy Business that doesn't reflect the situation on the ground.
The price stabilization levy was put on petroleum products to ensure that when prices are going up, government could have some buffer or some money set aside to bring it back onto the market so that you can hold the petroleum prices over a period of time. And that is where you estimate that the rise in price wouldn't be for the long term. So you can hold it over a period, and then when the price stabilizes, you can actually take it out. Our argument all the time, all this while has been that you can't accumulate enough money to manipulate petroleum prices on the international market. And therefore, the stabilization levy was not really relevant. And it has been justified over the period that the monies that has been accumulated over the period are actually not enough to stabilize the petroleum product prices. So essentially what they do with that money is to stabilize the premix fuel for the fisher folks. And we're now seeing how people are corrupting that money, because the more premix they consume, the more subsidy they demand. And when they demand that from the price stabilization levy, there is nothing left for stabilizing petroleum and petrol and diesel prices.
It looks like we really have to go into this claim by government to see whether it's not true or not, because ACEP is actually questioning that. Let's look at the city and how it's affecting you and I. And the city's volatility actually remains the biggest threat to stable prices at the pumps. Now, that's the one and coming from the chief executive of the Chamber of Bulk Distribution Companies, Senior Hosi. Now, it follows this claim by government that they are actually holding prices at the pumps till February next year. But he actually believes that if this is not helped or this is not done well, this program is really under threat, looking at how the city is actually faring.
Price is something I don't like to look at deliberately because I don't want to talk too much about it. People tend to think that I set prices. I don't set prices. So I will discuss prices after the fact.
The city is also, there's a lot of volatility. There are a lot of volatility. Yeah, the volatility as well. How would that impact on prices?
The city will be the biggest problem that prices that we would have as far as prices is concerned. If we can deal with that macroeconomic factor, then we should significantly be stable. Petroleum prices on the world market will not materially move. I mean, the movement will be very marginal, and taxes take about half of the entire pump price. So you put a weight to every change. You have to discount it by the share of taxes in the prices, and you tend to realize that the marginal movements you have on the international market is not material enough to create a major shakeup until you have a major problem like we had with the hurricane. And I indicated it was just temporary, so everybody had to be a bit stable. Because once refineries come back up to be sorted out, there's a crisis, volumes move to a point, it will be resolved. So generally, is the main thing that we need to look out for in 2018, as far as petroleum prices are concerned, is what happens to the currency.
So that was Senior Hosi giving us some update basically on what would happen, on how the city is faring and how that could impact on prices at the pumps. Now, every 2 weeks, if you actually drive to the pumps, there's some change in prices. What actually goes into these prices when it comes to how the reviews are done and all those things? Let's get some understanding from Karen Dodu, who's been trying to break the issues down for you and I.
Petroleum pricing is a big issue in Ghana because of its impact on the general economy and some businesses. An increase often leads to strike by transport operators and other actors in the economy. Today we test the pulse of Ghanaians and find out how much they really know about what goes into the determination of the price of petroleum products on the local market.
Actually, I don't know anything about what goes into fuel pricing, because when they say they've reduced it, I don't see it. I don't see it. When I buy it with the amount of fuel I'm supposed to get, well, it's the same as what I used to get, so I don't know what they've taken.
Actually, I don't know what they take in from the fuel, but they will tell you they've taken in some taxes and they've added something, but just for a week, then later you realize they've increased fuel again, which, you understand, is not helping us.
The little I know is about this taxes from all sorts of places, which I cannot be too sure about. Sometimes they tell us they're taking some of them off. Other times they put in new ones. I can't be too sure. What I know is that the world market keeps, pricing in the world market keeps changing. In fact, it keeps dropping. But some way, somehow, it keeps going up here.
So can anything be done by government to stabilize prices? Executive Director of the African Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boache, has explained that the determination of the price of fuel goes beyond government's control.
Our argument all the time, all this while has been that you can't accumulate enough money to manipulate petroleum prices on the international market. And therefore, the stabilization levy was not really relevant. And it has been justified over the period that the monies that has been accumulated over the period are actually not enough to stabilize the petroleum product prices. What government did when prices were moving up was to take down the margin, the stabilization margin on diesel. But at the time they did that, international market prices were going up. So it rather stabilized the price for the pricing window that was supposed to be adjusted. So when they were supposed to increase price, then they took down the margin, so the price didn't have to go up.
He asked that the only way governments can reduce the price of fuel products is by reducing the tax on the products.
But obviously there are options for government when it comes to product pricing. It is not just Ghana. Throughout the world, petroleum products are a safe window or a cheaper window for government to mobilize tax revenue. So there are a lot of levies and taxes on petroleum products. For example, we have 41 pesos on every liter of petrol or diesel you buy for the repayment of the energy sector debt. Those windows are available to government to bring some relief to consumers, particularly the special petroleum tax.
Experts, however, predict that there might be a marginal increase in the price of fuel products on the international market. For Joy Business News, Karen Dodo reporting.
Well, from fuel, let's do power-related issues. And gas processed from the Sankofa Dinyame field is to be used to fuel the country's second power barge constructed by the tech firm Car Power. The 470-megawatt power ship has been connected to the national grid to boost power supply in the country. Deputy Minister of Energy Joseph Kujo says government has advanced move to relocate the facility to Sekendita Kwade to enable it to use locally.
To ensure that the entire value chain is robust so that we are able to monetize domestic gas to meet the energy needs, we are engaging prospective IPPs to obtain the OCTP gas. The 470 megawatt power ship is one of the primary candidates expected to offtake gas from the Sankofa field when it is relocated to Sekendi. Mr. Chairman, I am particularly excited to note that due to flexibility and fuel diversity offered by the power ship, we have the option to relocate this power ship to a gas supply source and switch from liquid fuel, HFO. Our technical teams are working frantically to assess the smooth relocation of the power ship to our gas supply source. Ultimately, it is envisaged that the conversion from HFO to gas operation would contribute to reductions in the cost of power generation, which is in line with the numerous interventions by this government to relieve consumers of high electricity tariffs.
So he was speaking at the inauguration ceremony for the second power barge after the power purchase agreement that is car power ship signed with ECG supply actually 450 megawatts to the national grid for 10 years. So what does the CEO of a car power ship, that is Ohan Razim Karandan, stated the company's presence in the country fulfills its contractual obligations to the country.
Continue to be the lowest cost and most reliable solution partner for Ghana. Spearheading our expansion into the region, ECOWAS and the continent from our strong operating base in Ghana. Proudly, we would like to take the role we are allowed to take in making Ghana an energy export hub and a growth center in the region. We do our best to make people's lives easier, to offer them a much better future. In every location we operate, we do not only meet the electricity demand of millions and hundreds of thousands of people, but we also impact the socio-economic structure growth by providing employment opportunities for the local economy, delivering extensive social responsibility projects, engaging local communities. We work towards one world and contribute to increase global welfare.
Well, away from fuel power, let's talk about the local currency, Kudi, or whichever name that you want to call it, because the recent challenges facing the city might not be all that bad for some businesses and even the economy. And this because the porters are greatly benefiting from these fluctuations that have hit the local currency. So is some level of depreciation actually good? Looking at the structure of our economy, well, there's some answers in the following Business Desk report.
The Bank of Ghana's economic data puts the cedi's depreciation against the dollar ending November this year at 4.6%. The local currency's depreciation had gotten somehow bad over the past weeks with some serious instability against the dollar. But for those that are in the import business, these blips are good for them. Frederick Ayer is second vice president of the Association of Ghanaian Exporters.
When the cedi becomes weaker, that is when we also become strong. The only challenge is that we don't have the volumes to take advantage of that. You know that what that means, because it means the buyer will be interested to buy from Ghana, because when he or she is bringing his money or her money to buy, it means it will require so much money in terms of foreigners to buy from us so much. But when we are not able to produce and have the volumes, that is when we don't see the benefit of the depreciation. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a seesaw affair. Internally, those of you who are not on our side, let's say consumers, will see it as negative. But to us, no, it doesn't. So assuming that cedi equal to $1, one cedi $1, exports, non-trade exports will not be business. You know why? Because there will be no compensation.
The exporters have also argued of being cheated when the local currency appreciates or firmly stabilizes. So just imagine an exporter who was earning about $100 when the cedi was 3 cedis 50 pesos against the dollar, and now with a rate of 4 cedis 50 pesos. There's also talk about government getting more than expected from the cocoa loan syndication inflows, which could result in farmers getting some bonuses. But on the flip side, let's not forget about a depreciated cedi and its impact on prices of imported goods, interest payments, and the public debt.
So indeed, it's interesting. While some people might be celebrating because the cedi is going down, others are also worried. So let's try and do some analysis on this whole issue. What is happening to the cedi? What can be done? Is the Bank of Ghana's intervention actually touching those right spots that can help stabilize the cedi? Derek Mensah is a financial analyst, a currency analyst as well. He's been monitoring development on the currency. So let's get onto him on Skype and let's do some analysis on this. Derek, good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us on Marketplace. Let me first ask you, monitoring developments on the market, what do you make of the Ghana cedi's performance?
Could you repeat that, George?
Well, Derek, if you can hear me, I'm just trying to find out from you, what do you make of the local currency's performance over the past weeks? The volatility, the blips, unprecedented, some would say.
Okay. I believe that over the last 6 to 7 weeks, we've seen some steep depreciation of the currency, but I believe that is nothing to worry too much about if you are comparing it historically to how the city has performed in previous years. However, the pace of depreciation over the last few weeks has been a bit alarming. I think the city has depreciated by about an extra 800 bips. 800 basis points from a level of about 4.3 to about 4.4. So it raises a bit of alarm. But given looking at the fundamentals, we realize that it's not too much of a concern because the fundamentals of the economy still remain to healthy. So I believe strongly that the weaker performance of the volatility has been largely driven by speculative activities.
Derek, I get excited when we hear assurances from the Bank of Ghana that the fundamental is strong or the fundamentals are strong, but why are these fundamentals not impacting on the performance of the city over the past weeks? And we've seen these serious blips.
Well, I think that the blips that we are seeing, or the volatility that we witnessed in the last few days to weeks, is largely coming as a result of mainly trading activities or interventions from the central bank. If you look at what our gross international reserves have done over the last quarter, you realize that the central bank has been a bit active on the currency market, because we see the reserve position declining slightly, albeit that it's still quite resilient at about 3.9% of 3.9 import cover, which is still strong. I think that I'm a value investor, or I like to focus on the fundamentals, and I believe that the fundamentals will determine, and I think that has actually kept the city relatively stable over the last year. I mean, the worst is that we are looking at a year-to-date depreciation of 4.8%, which for me has been the best performance of the currency year on year over the last, I think, since the city was redenominated in 2007. Going forward, as to whether we'll be able to keep that, I struggle to believe that. But even though we've seen that steep depreciation this past few days to a week, I still think that the city has performed relatively well throughout the year.
Interesting, Derek. And the regulator's intervention, do you think that we should pump in more dollars to hold it? Because some businesses have argued that they don't even care if the cedi is 10 cedis to $1. The volatility is just throwing their budget out of gear. Should the Bank of Ghana pump in more dollars to hold the cedi even at 4 or 5?
I think that that would be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction if the Bank of Ghana just immediately reacts to how the cities performed in the last few days. I think that we need to give it a bit of time to see how the market actually responds to this. The key issue is that the attack on the cedi is purely speculative. So you would like to see the extent of that speculation before you respond with monetary intervention. If it's quite steep, then you know the quantum of dollars that you want to bring. And at this point, we've seen this kind of during this, and I think it's seasonal. So once the season wears, I think that the key drivers of
All right, Derek Mensah, thank you so much for those updates on the Ghana cedi, and we'll be still coming back to you later to see, test the sentiments of investors who have invested in the local bonds and how they will also be reacting to this. So that was Derek Mensah. He is a currency market analyst sharing those views with us. And so that was Derek Mensah sharing his thought on us. And from the currency, let's do something relating to cashew nuts. And President Akufo-Addo is expected to announce a 10-year cashew development plan during the cashew new season opening in February 2018. The cashew new season opening has been adopted and is to be observed annually as a flagship program at the beginning of each cashew season by the Cashew Association of Ghana and Exporters Promotion Center. Chief Executive of the authority, Gifty Clenham, disclosed this during the national launch of the Cashew Mass Spraying Initiative promotion of granted seedlings at Wenchi in the Bronga-Hafo region.
In April this year, a memorandum of understanding was reached between the Ghana Exports Promotion Authority and the Cashew Industry Association of Ghana to develop and implement a 10-year national cashew development plan. The plan was aimed at revitalizing the whole cashew value chain from research, production, storage, and processing to trading. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Exports Promotion Authority, Gifty Clenham, says the pilot for a mass cashew spraying exercise will be undertaken under the National Cashew Development Plan. The exercise is expected to cover over 10,000 acres of farmlands this year and over 70,000 acres annually moving forward. The Ghana Exports Promotion Authority is also helping about 10,000 registered cashew farmers to benefit from a credit facility of about 300 million Ghana cedis. Gifty Clenham says there are other interventions to boost the cashew industry.
The challenge for today's cashew farmer stems from inadequate knowledge on best agricultural practices, the apparent lack of mass spraying exercise to fight common diseases, and the lack of logistics credit to support farmers maintain their cashew farms. Without improving production, we shall not see any increase in cashew export. For traders, there shall be new regulations to protect local traders and aggregators. New administrative measures shall be announced before the end of the year in readiness for new season. New licensing and registration for all exporters and traders have already been set. New administrative fee will be announced in the form of export levy on raw cashew export, as it is done in all exporting countries in West Africa, to generate money to support development schemes like we are currently doing for farmers.
Executive Secretary of Cashew Industry Associations of Ghana, Aaron Achian, says the mass spraying exercise would increase cashew yield by 30%.
The journey has just begun. Ladies and gentlemen, mass spraying exercise is a very laudable idea and a good cause to chart. Research has shown that when you spray your field, you add to your yield about 30% more. This does not include an addition of fertilizer to your field. GEPA is therefore expecting from us farmers considerable increase in our production next year. That is, if all fields are protected from the pests. If this condition is anything to go by, then our output next year should be approaching about 90,000 metric tons.
Let's do banking and some innovative things that are happening, because they are saying that government needs to put in frameworks to create the enabling environment for Islamic financing system to operate freely without any problems. Now that's according to the Vice President of the Africa Islamic Foundation, Mohammed Fawazi Amadou. Islamic banking, despite its significance in some countries in Africa, is yet to be introduced in Ghana. In an interview with Joy Business, he noted that when allowed to operate in Ghana, Islamic banking could help open up the financial space and enhance a government's financial inclusion. Fauziatu Adam has been looking at whether this really hasn't been appreciated in this country.
Allahu Akbar,
Quran chapter 2 verse 275 says, As for those who devour interest, they behave as the one whom Satan has confounded with his touch. Since in this state they say, buying and selling is but a kind of interest, even though Allah has made buying and selling lawful and interest unlawful. Hence, he who receives this admonition from his Lord and then gives up dealing in interest may keep his previous gains, and it will be for Allah to judge him. And for those who revert to it, they are the people of the fire, and in it shall they abide. Verse 276 continues with, Allah deprives interest of all blessings, whereas he blesses charity with growth. Allah loves none who is ungrateful and persists in sin. For a Muslim, the object of life is to live in a way that is pleasing to Allah so that one may gain paradise. In a country where we have financial institutions transacting businesses with interest, Matan Sarki is a businesswoman who is a staunch Muslim. She sells textiles at the Nima market and manages a small washroom on Wednesday, which happens to be market day at Nima. For her, there is nothing in this world that will make her access loans from financial institutions in the country because the religion frowns on taking interest.
Taking bank loans with interest, our preachers have told us that Allah forbids it, and if you do business with interest, you will go to hellfire. You go and take 100 Ghana cedis and they add 200 Ghana cedis. The 200 interest is forbidden, and on Judgment Day, you will pay for it. I am not done paying for my sins, and I can't add this interest thing to it. Since Islamic financing does not accept taking loans with interest, it will be a welcome news for all of us.
Ba kara komi kai in ka ake aka baka 100 million ka biya 100 million wala aka kawo sun karbi.
Rabiu Maude is a Muslim entrepreneur.
For somebody who is in the construction industry, right, and you get a government contract and you do not have mobilization, you probably need funds to do the job, and then you get paid later. You'll agree with me that if you went for a loan from a financial institution and the APRs or the annual percentage rates are about, say, 30%, you complete this job in 6 months and you have to wait for a year and a half to get paid by government. You and I would understand what that kind of interest will do to your payments in the end. It will actually swallow it up.
I just can't wait of taking that loan with interest, and I hope that, inshallah, this is not going to happen in this country maybe next year. Islamic banking, taking loan without interest. Well, all too soon, we have to draw the curtain down on the marketplace. Such an interesting day. Friday, I have to go out and join my colleague as we mourn our brother Kaba as he goes home this weekend. All the best. Enjoy your weekend. My name is Georgia.